Now that we've gained an understanding of the Turing test, what we're going to do in this lesson is have a look at the issues with the Turing test, and we're really going to break this down into 3 sections. We're going to be looking at trying to attack the Turing test from a number of different angles, 2 quite polar opposites, and then one that sort of comes from left field. Okay, so the first one is that the Turing test is too difficult, it's too hard. The second is the Turing test is too easy. And then the third is what we call Lady Lovelace's objection to the Turing test, which is one that isn't particularly very strong, but I thought we'd cover it anyway because it's quite a famous example. But yeah, we'll also cover why the objection isn't particularly strong. And I'm going to finish off by applying this to the movie Ex Machina and having a look at really what the Turing test, the role that it played in that movie. Because if anything, you know, life imitates art, so we should really be looking at science fiction to try and develop our understanding of the philosophy of artificial intelligence. So the first question: is the Turing test too difficult? Is it too hard? Some suggest that it's too hard to pass. If it's too hard to pass, how can it be reliably used to determine intelligence? Okay, so the suggestion that it is too hard is also especially difficult to overcome, since the reason why it's too hard, according to the critics, is that it's to do with the very nature of the test itself that makes it too difficult. So we can't just turn it down and make it a little bit easier. The whole nature of the test and the way it's set up makes it too difficult, according to these critics. The test requires the ability to converse with other people, to have a conversation. However, it's still possible to have intelligence without having the ability to have a conversation. It's seen by critics as quite an anthropocentric way of finding intelligence, as in it's quite a human-centric way of finding intelligence. It's what a human would look at when we're looking at intelligence. So really, can we have an understanding of intelligence without looking at the sort of human aspect of it? Can something be intelligent without having to acquire the language ability to pass the Turing test? And that's really the issue at hand here, because some would argue that yes, you could have an intelligent machine that doesn't pass the Turing test because it doesn't have the ability to acquire language and use language and express language in a way that is replicative to human language. So that's a problem that we have with the Turing test. We also have the counter issue, is some suggest that the Turing test is actually quite easy. It's a little bit too easy. It doesn't look very easy according to this unhappy computer here, who seems to be studying for the Turing test. However, some people suggest that can we really be able to determine intelligence by just having a short conversation with a machine? Is language the only thing that determines intelligence? Can a machine just be unintelligent but still have the ability to possess language? That's an interesting point. So if the Turing test is way too easy, since it doesn't allow us to use other aspects of our intelligence, you could have a super intelligent machine, a super intelligent computer that's able to do everything except for have a conversation, except for using language, and therefore it would fail the Turing test. However, it's still an intelligent machine. You could also have an intelligent machine that is so intelligent that it knows what the Turing test is and would be able to deliberately fail the Turing test in order to try and fool the silly humans that are trying to perform this test. So this is, it's a very difficult one to apply in practice. It's quite paradoxical, really, seeing as both of the objections are somewhat linked in their reasoning. The idea of it being too hard or too easy, they both come to really similar interesting points. That the main problem with the Turing test is language, and is having a conversation the only way we can determine whether or not a computer is intelligent, whether or not a machine can think. Some suggest that this lends it to being too easy, and others suggest that it lends it to being too difficult. So they're both very good ways of trying to strike down the Turing test to apply it in the real world. We also have Lady Lovelace's objection, and Lady Lovelace said that really she said that machines cannot be intelligence because everything they do, no matter how intelligent they are, everything it does is programmed to be by an intelligent designer beforehand. So a machine lacks originality. Everything that we program a machine to do, already we've programmed it to do it. So we can program it to do something really intelligent, but that doesn't mean that the machine is intelligent. That just means that we're intelligent enough to program the machine. And that's an interesting paradoxical issue with the Turing test. However, it doesn't really make much sense, seeing as there are lots of different objections and counterpoints you can make to this. So really, what are the issues with this argument? Well, there are quite a few. So for some people who are religious, they believe that humans are also unoriginal. If humanity and the universe was created by an intelligent designer, i.e. God, then how can we possess any kind of originality or free will? If you take the Christian understanding of predestination, God already knows that you're going to heaven or hell, and already knows what you're going to do, and knows every single thing about you. He is omniscient. So humans don't have any kind of free will, so we don't have any kind of originality. So by that logic, and if we apply it to a sort of a religious understanding, does that mean that humans are not intelligent either? And you don't even have to be religious to accept something similar to this. You could say, if you're a strong determinist, someone who believes that everything in the universe is already predetermined and that we have no free will, nothing can be original in a deterministic universe. So you can see that there are a lot of ways we can really attack Lovelace's argument, and then it becomes an issue that isn't of an issue of computer science or philosophy of computer science. It becomes a problem about free will and action. So really, it's a very slippery slope with Lovelace's argument to try and prove it wrong, because we end up just talking about a completely different area of philosophy, an interesting area, but not an area that really we're focusing on in this course. Moreover, just because computers don't express any originality, this doesn't mean they are unable to ever express any originality. This is the point that Lovelace brushes over, really. She takes quite a static view of science and technology, that at the time that she wrote what she wrote, computers lacked any kind of originality. But that doesn't mean that technology, as it develops, can create computers that maybe will be able to express originality. So that's another issue with Lovelace's argument. So moving on, we can apply the Turing test to our sort of science fiction understanding, our science fiction case study, which is the film Ex Machina. Okay, and the whole central plot of the film is to try and see if Ava, who is this one here, passes the Turing test. So in this movie, the researchers are tasked with trying to see if Ava can pass the Turing test. And what's really interesting is, because as the viewers know that Ava clearly expresses and would seem to be an example of strong artificial intelligence, they tried to modify the Turing test in a way to make it even harder to pass. So rather than having a conversation behind closed doors with a real human, okay, and the test subject doesn't know who it is that is doing, who's having a conversation with, what they do is they decide to raise the bar of expectation. They instead show the test subject that she is actually indeed a robot. They are shown which one is the robot, okay, and it is up to Ava to then prove that she still has artificial intelligence. So it's sort of a mixing up of the Turing test in a way. So it removes a fundamental part of the test, which is, if we're to take a human and a machine, we'll swap them around so we don't know which one is which. Can the machine trick the human into believing that it's human? It takes that part away, and it says, well, what happens if we reveal which one is the robot and which one isn't the robot, and then try to get the robot to prove that it is intelligent? That's a very interesting point, and it's one that you go into in a lot more detail in this movie, which is actually a lesson task for you to do If you can, watch the movie, because it's very interesting, it's very good. Okay, and while you're watching it, take note of the significance of the Turing test and the ways in which the researchers devised the test in a way to ensure that intelligence can be found. Very interesting points that could be made and that could be discussed there. In the next lesson, we're going to argue against the existence of strong artificial intelligence by positing the Chinese room argument.